For you to be comfortable, so if everybody could take a seat, we'll get started here in just a minute. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. I'm Steve Pitts, the Chief of the Reno Police Department, welcoming you tonight on behalf of our City Manager, Andrew Klinger, who will not be joining us, but sends his best. Also, on behalf of all those serving you in our public safety efforts in the city, we want to thank you for being here this evening and for tuning in online or at home. Tonight, you will hear from Emergency Communications, which is commonly referred to as Dispatch, the Reno Police Department, the Reno Fire Department, and RMSA. It is also important that you understand that these public safety assets could not perform as effectively as they do if it was not for the many departments in the city that support those efforts every day. And remember, the greatest asset in our service in public safety is you, the community. When we reflect on the many events we have faced over the last 3 to 4 years, you, our community, have been and always will be our foundation. From us, thank you for your support and oversight. We will be better for it. At tonight's Public Safety Forum, we want to accomplish a few things with your help. The first is to provide a better understanding of what public safety is in your city and what our capacities are for the future. Second, we want to answer questions or concerns you may have about a topic that surrounds public safety and explain to you how different entities in our region collaborate. It appears that we will not have a quorum of the City Council tonight. Therefore, we will not open the meeting formally. However, there will be a chance for public comment later in the forum. If at some point we do have a quorum of council members, we will open the meeting at that time. You were given cards when you came in, and there's actually one on each or a couple on each chair. Comment cards to write down your questions, concerns, or suggestions that we intend to answer in this interaction. Please also take time during the forum to write down questions that may come up during the discussions or the presentations that you hear tonight. We will also address questions and concerns later online through our reno.gov and Think Reno websites. Finally, the most important takeaways, we believe, tonight will be building better understandings, yours of our service, us of your expectations, relationships, and most importantly, partnerships that will improve public safety in our community. I'd like to introduce this evening's moderator, Brent Boynton, the Vice President of News and Production for KNPB. As a member of Nevada Broadcasters Association Hall of Fame, Brent has spent more than 3 decades working in television news. He also served as communications director for former Governor Jim Gibbons. Thank you, Brent, from all of us at the city and the community who are participating tonight in RMSA, and please join me in a round for Brent Boynton.
Thank you, Chief Pitts. I also would like to thank each and every one of you for coming out tonight. I'm honored to be part of our community's efforts to educate our citizens and listen to their concerns, our concerns, because I am one. And I'd like to quickly reiterate what's on this evening's agenda. First of all, I hope that you had the opportunity to fill out a question card if you already know what your question is going to be this evening. We're going to address your questions to the best of our ability within the allotted time. We've left additional cards on the seats, as Chief Pitts mentioned, so if you think of questions throughout the evening, just jot them down. Whether you're joining us tonight or tuning in online or on TV, they didn't tell me about TV. Cameras make me nervous. The community is encouraged to use the hashtags AskRPD for police, AskRFD for fire, and AskRMSA for RMSA to join the conversation on Twitter. Another way to participate is to visit the Think Reno portal at reno.gov/thinkreno and ask your question there. Now, tonight's presenters have actually made quite a commitment. They have promised to answer all the questions that they get tonight within 30 days. So if you don't get a chance to ask your question here in this forum, be sure that you get it online. First, we're going to listen to our public safety representatives give an overview of their respective organizations. Then we'll have about 45 minutes to respond to questions from the audience. They'll be broken down by subject so we can take turns addressing them to dispatch, police, fire, or REMSA. I encourage you to fill out a card, once again, to increase your chances of getting to your question tonight. At the end of the written questions, we will have 15 minutes for live audience questions. So, if your question was not answered early on, you may have the opportunity to ask it then. A few rules of engagement for the evening. Please be considerate of each other. Avoid asking a question that's already been answered or stating points that have already been made. My role as the facilitator will be to move this forum along in an efficient manner. So wish me luck with that, and help me with that, please. To review once more, the overview from the agencies themselves come first, audience questions on cards, then live audience questions. In addition, a mobile phone survey will be conducted at the end of the forum, so if you like to play with technology, stick around for that. Moving on to our presentations, Reno's emergency response is largely handled by 4 organizations: the Emergency Communications Center, Reno Police Department, Reno Fire Department, and Regional Emergency Medical Services Authority, which we know as REMSA. We're pleased to have the leaders of those departments and organizations with us this evening. The city's Manager of Communications and Technology, Daniel Johnson. Go ahead and wave, Dan. Deputy Chief of Police, Tom Robinson. Fire Chief, Michael Hernandez. And REMSA President and CEO, Jim Gubbles. Now, each of those leaders have prepared a short presentation about what his team does in the public safety equation. But before we go any further, I would also like to recognize the city council members who have joined us this evening. Hiding in the back instead of in their usual places are Hillary Sheevy, Neoma Jordan, and Oscar Delgado. Thank you very much for coming this evening. And they will be here to answer questions as well. All right. I also need to acknowledge the representatives of our labor unions who are able to be here tonight and participate in this important event. They are Jason Soto of the Reno Police Department, Brian Dye of the Reno Police Department, Tim O'Brien of the Reno Fire Department, and Dennis Jacobson of the Reno Fire Department. Thank you all for being here tonight. We will begin with the presentations of, we're actually beginning our presentations with the department that gets the initial call. Because it doesn't matter what the emergency is, one of the main things all of these professionals need, and what we as citizens need in time of emergency, is communication. Daniel Johnson is the Manager of Communications and Technology for the City of Reno. Daniel's department oversees the 911 Emergency Dispatch Center and provides support for all other city departments' technology needs. Daniel began his career at the city in 2001 as Senior Network Analyst, and he served as the IT Manager before being promoted to Communications and Technology Manager. Daniel?
Thank you, Brent, for the introduction. As he mentioned, my name is Daniel Johnson. I'm the Manager of Emergency Communications and Technology for the City of Reno, and we operate the 911 Dispatch Center. Our mission statement is to strive for excellence in providing, I'll read this, but basically what this says here is that it's not just citizens, it's everybody in our region, it's citizens, visitors alike, and our job is to get the right response to the right emergency in a quick and efficient manner. Some of our major issues and strategies up in emergency communications are that we're concentrating on core services now more than ever with the reductions in the recession that we had, and we had a lot of cutbacks in our budget up there, as every department in the city had. And so we really concentrate on the core services that we provide, which is getting that response to the appropriate location. Really looking at cost-effective delivery of our service. What can we do better? Can we improve our technology? Can we improve our processes so that we can do it in a more cost-effective manner? We work very well with the other agencies to optimize our regional services. There's 3 PSAPs in our area. We're one of 3. There's also the City of Sparks operate a PSAP. PSAP stands for Public Safety Answering Point. And Washoe County operates another one. The Washoe County and the Reno communication centers are both co-located up at our Spectrum Boulevard facility, and Sparks is located in Sparks. Another issue that we strive for is transparency in government. That's, letting people know what's going on. On our open data portal on the city website, we do have a tool there to be able to look up the police and fire call data that's happened during a period of time. We also look to maintain our CLIA accreditation. CLIA stands for it's the Committee for Accreditation on Law Enforcement Agencies, and we're one of the few dispatch-only centers that have that accreditation. It helps us to maintain our policies and procedures at a very high level so that we can provide a very high level of service. One of our goals is to sustain full staffing using some recruitment and retention methods. We do have some openings up in our facility right now that we're looking to recruit and get filled. It is a difficult job, so we generally have a pretty high turnover rate on our dispatchers. Again, we want to provide the timely and effective response. And then we continue to review with the agencies that we serve and work with on quality assurance. So if we have an incident, there's always an after-incident report or analysis where we find out if we could have done something better during the course of that incident. We provide services for the city of Reno, which includes Reno Fire and Reno Police. We also provide dispatch services for the University of Nevada Reno Police Department and Truckee Meadows Community College Police, the Reno Marshal's Office, and the Reno Municipal Court. Our staffing right now, we're authorized at 55 full-time equivalent staff. That consists of 1 assistant manager up there, 7 supervisors. We have 3 call taker positions, 44 dispatcher positions. You can see there are some vacant positions there that we're working to recruit. The call taker positions are just certified on the call taker portion. Our dispatchers are fully certified positions, can handle any of the duties that we have up there. Our budget for this current fiscal year that we're in is $5.7 million. The majority of that is salaries and benefits of our employees, and quite a bit of overtime up there at our dispatch center, because we have to staff at a certain level regardless of how many people we actually have on the payroll at the given time. In 2013, we answered over 400,000 calls. Nearly 200,000 of those were actual 911 calls. The rest were in on the non-emergency lines. Here's the call flow for how a call comes in. When we receive a call, first we determine if it's an emergency or not. If it's not an emergency, we'll refer it to the appropriate agency so that the person that calls in can file a report or an issue with that agency that they have an issue. If it's another jurisdiction, these don't happen very often, but sometimes we get calls that actually are covered under another jurisdiction. In that instance, we'll transfer it to the PSAP that covers that jurisdiction. Then we determine, is it a medical call, is it a law enforcement call, or is it a fire call? If it's a medical call, then we transfer that call to REMSA and find out if the criteria for fire to respond is met, which is a priority 1 or a priority 2. As soon as we know what the priority is, if it meets fire's criteria, we're creating that call for Reno Fire and sending them on the call as well. For the police call, we determine which agency it's for, and then the appropriate dispatcher takes that over and dispatches the unit, whether it's Reno Police, UNRTMCC, Washoe Sheriff. We do receive calls in our PSAP for some of the areas that the Washoe County Sheriff's Office provides service for. They dispatch for it, but we receive the calls. And then on fire, we have Reno Fire and Truckee Meadows Fire. We do receive calls, again, for Truckee Meadows, which Washoe County then dispatches for if it's a Truckee Meadows Fire call. And then we have our technology side of it, our computer-aided dispatch system. So when a call comes in, what I just went over was the call flow. This is the 911 call comes in. We find out which response is needed. Our dispatcher creates the call for service in our CAD system, which creates the record in our electronic system. And then as the call's going on, the units are dispatched. There'll be updates to that call. They're entering that information in, and it's going into our technology system. From the technology system, it then transfers over to the law records or the fire record system from the dispatch side, so that after the incident, the police or the fire can create their reports on it. So we have the database of the calls. And from there, they can then use the data for their proactive police and fire duties. Next up is the Reno Police Department with Tom Robinson.
Thank you. I'm interceding briefly. First of all, because I need to make sure that Jim Goebbels doesn't throw anything at me. I mispronounced his name. I wanted to give. Thank you. I wanted to give him a chance to cool off before his actual talk time. Representing the Reno Police Department is Deputy Chief of Police Tom Robinson. The RPD has adapted to new levels of innovation and service. You could tell they wrote this. It's just my job to read. The department, I'm putting the pressure on you to make sure you can do. The department is viewed as a model of policing excellence when dealing with community problems, crime, in relationships with the citizens they serve. In recent years, the department has demonstrated, with the community's support, its effectiveness in dealing with complex emergencies impacting our region. The chief and his executive team have spent years developing systems to deal with crime and community problems, emergency management, crisis intervention, and improvements to community interaction and victim services. So no pressure. Chief Robinson?
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tom Robinson. I'm here on behalf of Chief Pitts, who's fulfilling another role tonight, obviously, and the men and women of the Reno Police Department. There's a couple things we'd like to do tonight. We want everyone in our community to learn more about your police department. We're always interested in developing relationships and creating new partnerships that improve the service that we deliver to this community. We're also interested in developing a better understanding of those issues and concerns that we can address more effectively. So to start with, we wanted to kind of let you know who we are. The Reno Police Department is a nationally recognized progressive law enforcement agency whose operating philosophy is community-oriented policing and problem-solving and intelligence-led policing. We're driven by 7 guiding principles that we feel are essential to achieving our vision of being a model of policing excellence. And we've listed those guiding principles on the screen for you: community-oriented policing and problem-solving. Obviously, that's one of our core operating philosophies, along with intelligence-led policing. And then customer service and personnel safety. The organizational culture and diversity, obviously those things are big issues for us that we're concerned about. Leadership, we feel that we're leaders in the community, and we want all of our personnel to be leaders within our organization as well. Innovation and technology, what that guiding principle is about is finding more efficient and current ways to do our job in a better way. And then organizational family enrichment is really about enriching the relationships we have internally with the idea that we'll enhance our relationships with the community by doing so.
Chief Robinson?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but we now have a quorum. So we are actually going to open a Reno City Council member and meeting, and we'll be back to you. Was it something I said?
Yeah, you started talking about quorum.
Well, thank you for your brief comments.
Okay, I'll get back on track. The performance of our organization is driven by analysis that's deeply rooted in I lost track of my notes here. Community-oriented policing and problem-solving, intelligence-led policing, community surveys, and our engagement with the community. Just a brief overview structurally of our organization. Obviously, our department is divided into 3 divisions that are broken into 2. A deputy chief oversees each of those divisions. And then you can see the different units and sections we have throughout our organization with this chart. Patrol, burglary, we have detectives, and a vice unit too that does undercover operations. I won't go through all of them, but we have a very comprehensive department with a multitude of services available. Currently, we have 305 sworn positions. 301 of those are filled. We're down 4. 13 of those positions are actually in an academy right now. Our highest staffing year was 08-09 when we had 383 sworn officers. The operations division includes the bulk of our staffing, which is 72% of our uniformed personnel are in the operations division, and that entails patrol divisions and traffic, basically everything in a uniform besides our regional gang unit. Regional gang unit is housed within our support division, along with detectives and all of our regional operations. Our officers are assigned to a 4-day-a-week, 10-hour-a-day work schedule. They are deployed into one of 3 geographic areas. We divide our city up into 3 areas. Basically, everything north of I-80 is the North Division. Everything south of Mill Street, roughly, is the South Division. And then in between there is our Central Division. And we also have oversight or involvement in every major regional or federal unit that operates within our region. To provide you with an understanding of our effectiveness, we want to kind of explain a little bit about how we got here. Since 08-09, we've taken a $10 million hit as a result of the economic impacts. We reduced our staffing by 91 sworn positions and 58 civilian positions. We call them our professional staff. We've slowly been weaning ourselves off of grants, and we've reduced them down to $1.1 million from $4.5 million in fiscal year 9 and 10. With all these cuts, we had to develop some priorities because we had to move some personnel around, and the decision we made was to keep our patrol division strong. And basically, the justification for that philosophy was that we wanted to have a police officer available anytime someone from our community picked up a phone and called 911. So you'll see by this chart here that other parts of our organization took the hits when we had to reduce our staffing levels. Our executive team was cut in half. Our traffic division was cut down by 1/3. Our set team, which is our vice unit, took a significant hit as well. We wanted to provide a comparison for you based on staffing levels, and this chart kind of explains that point. Since 1991, the size of Reno has nearly doubled in size geographically. We have about 100,000 more residents and only about 4% fewer police officers. The sworn per 1,000 residents is a measurement used by the Bureau of Justice Assistance to create basically a nationwide comparison so we can look throughout the nation and have an apples-to-apples comparison. The national average for a city our size is about 1.9 officers per 1,000, and we're at 1.29 currently. And then you can see that the total number of calls that we respond to every day on average with an officer on scene is 424 calls. The comparison to that, or the risk in that, is the line of duty deaths, something that we pay attention to on a daily basis. The chilling fact about this stat is that line of duty deaths are up. This year there's been 92 police officers killed year to date. We just had one yesterday nationwide, which is up 15% from 2013. The scariest part about that statistic is 39 of those deaths have been by gunfire, which is up 56% from 2013. So those are the risks involved that everyone knows that are inherent with our profession. The previous slide provided you with a sense of our capacity on our staffing levels. This slide shows you, provides you with a sense of our ability to provide service. As you can see, roughly 66% of all calls in a dispatch are a call for service that get routed to the Reno Police Department. And we had officers on scene at roughly 125,000 of those calls, which is fairly significant. And we were able to respond to all the higher priority calls within 6 minutes. And we usually had more than 2 officers on scene. And once we're on scene, we usually spend around 48 minutes developing the facts, finding out what was going on, and bringing a conclusion to the case. That 48 minutes doesn't include the time on the back end where we go in and write a report and present a case to the DA's office or the city attorney's office. I talked earlier about how we're a nationally recognized organization, and one of the ways that we've received national recognition is what we've done with community-oriented policing. And one of the things that we do with community-oriented policing is that we have an annual public survey where we actually reach out to our community and ask how our performance is. And that's become a model of community-oriented policing throughout the nation. The survey isn't conducted by a bunch of police officers on the phone. We actually work very closely with the University of Reno and Dr. Manny Barthas here from UNR. And the actual surveys themselves are conducted by UNR students. It's a statistically relevant and valid survey, and the number that we need to survey is based on our population. In 2013, we needed 384 respondents. We had over 400. And you can see that we're doing a pretty good job, but there's room for improvement, obviously. Our overall performance last year was 82% positive. And to provide you with a comparison, to kind of show you where we've come from, back in 1987 when we started doing the survey, our performance was at 30%. So we've made a lot of strides, and we've grown quite a bit over the years. The image of the Reno Police Department is 79% positive, which is good, but we're always trying to make that better. 88% of the people that are surveyed feel safe in Reno. 87% of the people we surveyed feel safe in downtown during the day. And in 2009, we started asking people how safe they felt in downtown Reno during the nighttime. And in 2009, it was at 40%. And we're gaining ground there, but we've got a ways to go. Some of the comments that we heard last year during the survey that we've included here, and the biggest concerns that are experienced in our community are concerns over drugs, theft, and gangs. And we learned that we needed improvements with our online, telephonic, and desk reporting, which we have some things in the works right now to improve those areas. And we learned that our initial response usually excels, which kind of supports our philosophy of keeping our patrol division strong. But we needed improvements with the back end, with the follow-up, which may be the result of having a reduced detective division and smaller specialized units. And then I think an obvious fact, and something that we heard consistently in our survey, is that our community feels much safer when they actually see a police car driving through their neighborhood. I hope I'm leaving you all with an understanding that we view the community as an important aspect of our success. And to that point, I want to conclude my comments with a brief description of our outreach in the community. I'll start here about 4 o'clock on the chart here with the neighborhood contact teams. We send a team of officers into a neighborhood to find out how we're doing in that area. A lot of times we do them after a big event happens, and we want to go in and provide an explanation to that neighborhood that was affected. We tell them what happened there, and we want to know, get some feedback from them about what we can do better. We'll also do them, we did one in a neighborhood that was experiencing a high volume of shots fired calls, so we went in there and tried to do some problem solving. We've also attended at least 4 neighborhood festivals this year. We have a community action and outreach team that works very closely with some community resources such as the mobile outreach and safety team and Kids of Senior Corner. And we work together with those resources to provide resources to at-risk population. We work very closely with the other agencies in the region. And one of the things we work closely with them on is our Citizens Police Academy. And we're about to roll out a Wolfpack, the Reno Police Department Wolfpack and Policing program, where we'll bring you and our students into our organization to help us work on some problem-solving efforts. We've kind of experimented with Manny over the past, and we've had great success with that. Excuse me. After the events that transpired in Ferguson, we hosted a race symposium, which was attended by over 200 concerned community members. And one of the other big things we do is we work very closely with the leaders of our faith-based community. We view all these interactions as an essential component of our organization's success, and we look forward to finding more ways to create lasting partnerships with our community. So thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief. I have failed to recognize one of Chief Robinson's team members. Sean Garlock is here as a union representative for Reno Police. That was a substitution, and I failed to acknowledge him earlier in the evening, so welcome, sir. Excuse me, I have to go back for my other page.
Dude, you should have forgotten.
Reno Fire Chief Michael Hernandez oversees all aspects of the Reno Fire Department's operation. The fire department is considered an all-hazards response organization. That's kind of new highfalutin technology for me. When I grew up, it was the fire department. But the reason Chief Hernandez will tell you it's an all hazards response organization is that the fire department responds to fires, emergency medical calls, and natural and man-made disasters. The department prides itself in its customer service approach and public safety educational outreach. Chief Hernandez has been a fire service professional for more than 30 years. Chief Hernandez?
Good evening. My name is Michael Hernandez, and it's my pleasure to speak with you tonight. And it's my honor to represent the men and women of the Reno Fire Department. This January will complete 34 years of fire service career for me as a professional. I started out in Corpus Christi, Texas as a boot on the ground. I worked as a medic and a firefighter for about 12 years. I worked my way up the ranks, and I was fortunate and had the pleasure of being offered the opportunity to lead the Reno Fire Department. I got here during a time of fiscal crisis, and I can look at our organization and our community, and I can say that we've weathered the storm, and we're a better organization for it. So again, it's my pleasure to be here. It's my pleasure to represent the men and women of the fire department, and my goal is to hopefully clear up any misunderstandings that the community may or may not have about the service that we provide, and also to take your feedback. And I consider this an opportunity to hear the community and see where we have those gaps in misunderstanding. And it would be a takeaway for us to go back to our organization and either to develop a program or to develop an outreach system to close that gap. So with that said, oops, here we go. The Reno Fire Department's an all-risk, all hazards fire department, and really what that means is we don't just respond to fires. We respond to any disaster, whether it's natural or man-made. Chemical emergencies, hazardous materials responses, motor vehicle accidents, EMS calls, fire calls are just a small umbrella of some of the things that we do. On the screen, what you see are probably three of the most significant incidents that we've had in the last few years. Of course, the Washoe Fire, the Reno Air Race disaster, and the Collin Fire both occurred in 2011. Chief Robinson spoke about being an accredited organization. In the fire service, we have two organizations that you can receive accreditation from. One is the Commission on Public Safety Excellence, and the other is the Insurance Services Office, or the ISO office. Recently, we went through our ISO survey, and we went from a Class 3 organization to a Class 2 organization. That's extremely significant. It's significant for our taxpayers because their insurance rates are affected by that. They actually were reduced, and it recognizes the type of department that we have. They look at our water supply delivery, they look at our fire service delivery, they look at our dispatch communication center, and they look at how quickly we respond to calls and how quickly we can amass an effective firefighting response force. There's only 750 cities in the United States that have a Class 2 designation, and we're one of them, and I'm extremely proud of that. So what is it that we respond to? Well, the Reno Fire Department is basically a two-pronged organization. We respond to emergencies on the back end, and we try and prevent them on the front end. So when we respond, of course we have fire response. We respond to structural fires, wildland fires, vehicle, chemical fires. A great bulk of what we do is emergency medical services. We operate what's called a two-tiered EMS response system, and we partner with our good friends REMSA. And I can tell you that probably the single most common call that I get on a weekly basis is I called 911 because I had a medical emergency and a big red fire truck showed up. And a lot of our citizens don't understand that we do operate a two-tiered system. We do provide highly trained, medically trained emergency medical technicians to be available, geographically distributed, to be available to respond to those emergencies in a timely manner. We work hand in hand with REMSA. We oftentimes arrive before REMSA. Sometimes they get there before we do. We stabilize the patient to the best of our abilities, and we hand that patient off as quickly as possible to REMSA so that they can be transported to the hospital. Hazardous materials. We're part of a 3 organizational based hazardous materials response team. We work with the Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District, the Sparks Fire Department, and of course the Reno Fire Department. And we've combined our resources to respond to chemical emergencies. We're one of the few hazmat teams that actually has, I believe it's a Class 2 hazmat lab, which is a mobile lab that is very complex, very sophisticated, that can analyze unknown substances down to the molecular level. And we, of course, we respond in the region. Very proud of our special operations capability. We have our high angle team, our urban search and rescue, confined space, auto extrication specialists. We have the ability to respond to very complex machinery type rescues. So, again, we have a wet team, we have an urban search and rescue team, and we have a hazmat team. So when we talk about being an all hazards organization, that's exactly it. We get calls for unknown substances. We get calls for spills that are eating the asphalt on the street. We get calls for kids that get their heads caught in the banister of their stairway. The proverbial cat in the tree. We respond to all those things that when you heard Daniel Johnson talk about his dispatch center, and he broke it up into 3 categories. If it doesn't fit neatly in a police response, if it doesn't fit neatly in an EMS response, it comes to the fire department. A good example last weekend, we had an individual call, and she said her dog got into her air conditioning ductwork system, and no one would come out to help her. Well, they called us. We showed up. It took us about an hour and a half, but we were able to extricate the dog. And to a lot of people, their pets are their children, and we recognize that. So we respond accordingly. Community risk reduction is the front end of our response system. We try to educate and prevent accidents, injuries, and fires from occurring. National statistics, according to the National Fire Protection Association, the National Fire Academy, the United States Fire Administration, all agree that seniors 65 or older are at the highest risk of either accidents or injuries related to some type of fire emergency. Along with that, studies have proven that children or school-age children between the 3rd grade and the 5th grade are the most susceptible to learning fire-safe behaviors. So knowing that, our organization has taken that on, and we have outreach to our senior communities. And I'll speak to some of the things that we've done a little bit later in our slides, but we aggressively pursue engagement opportunities with our schools. We're constantly going out to our schools, whether it's to read to the schools, and we integrate a fire prevention message. We sometimes just show up and we interact with the kids during their breaks. So a little bit about our organization. This year, we have 239 full-time employees. That's the entire system. Of those 239, 204 are assigned to emergency operations. We have 13 in administration. That includes division chiefs. We have 10 in our fire prevention bureau. We have 6 battalion chiefs, 2 per shift. We operate a 2-battalion district. We have a north and a south, much like the police department. We have 3 safety officers, 1 per shift, and we have 3 mechanics assigned to our fleet services division. We operate 14 stations, 2 truck companies, 1 rescue company. We're a 24/7, 365 operation. Now, of the 14 stations, 2 of them are currently browned out, Station 7 on Skyline and Station 19 in the Somerset area. And primarily, we brown these stations out because, 1, we don't have the personnel to put them in there, and 2, we don't have the funding. Since I have been the chief for almost 5 years now, we have not hired anyone. We've lost people through attrition. This map I'll break this up in a little bit, but this shows the brown tan area. I don't know if you can see that or not. But the red dots represent fire stations, and as you can tell, they're geographically located throughout the entire city to respond to emergencies in that area. What you see in the corner is what we call the urban core or the McCarran Ring. Probably 80% of the calls that we respond to are in that urban core. So, of course, we have the bulk of our assets assigned to that district. This is a close-up of our North District with, of course, the McCarran Loop. And you can see our Stead Station number 9 up on the top there. Our Southern District is the bottom half with our new station being in the Damani Ranch area. Station 6 on Mariloma, and of course, again, we're strategically located to answer all emergencies within our jurisdiction. The little brown specks there are the Truckee Meadows stations. Calls for service. I'm running out of time here. Calls for service. Roughly, last year we responded to just over 37,000 calls. Of those, 586 or 2% were fires. Now, when I say 586, I mean these are actual buildings that were burning, not nuisance fires, not grass fires, not garbage bins. These are structure fires. The Reno Fire Department responds to a structure fire, one fire about once every 3 days. There are occasions where we have 2 in a day, and there are occasions we'll have back-to-back fires every single day. Statistically, if you look at the number of calls that we respond to, it's about 1 every 3 days. It's not unusual for us to have 2 multiple alarm events occurring at the same time. About 28,400 calls, or about 76% of our calls for service are EMS. We respond to the highest priority calls. Those are priority 1s and priority 2s, or the life-threatening calls, and Jim will speak to that in just a little bit. We responded 373 hazardous materials calls. That other category are other. When I mentioned sometimes we go rescue a dog out of ductwork, or a kid that had his head stuck in the banister, or his arm stuck in a drainage sink, that's what that category is. There are false alarms, there are nuisance calls. Oftentimes people will burn trash and they'll smell smoke. It happened to me multiple times, and they'll call the department. They'll say, hey, I smell smoke in this area, and we'll send an asset out there to investigate that. So about 7,800 calls that fall in that category of other. I spoke about the front end of trying to prevent accidents and fires. Our Fire Prevention Bureau is charged with that. And we're very engaged in our community with respect to trying to reach out and engage those senior communities as well as those school-age children. But what they also do, they do building inspections, fire investigations, public education, plan review. They investigate citizens' complaints, and we also maintain our hydrants. Is that my 10-minute beat? Real quickly, our community outreach. Again, we have a senior safety participant program. One of the things that we're extremely proud of is last year we distributed almost 1,200 smoke detectors. Of those, 590 were ADA compliant. Those are detectors that were specifically designed for individuals that were either hearing impaired or visually impaired. We have a gatekeeper program, which we refer people that we see that may need senior services. We refer those out to Washoe County Senior Services for follow-up. A little bit about our budget. Again, as the chief mentioned earlier, the Reno Fire Department was not alone when it came to the impact of the Great Recession. In 08-09, this is just a general fund budget. This is without any type of augmentation with a grant or anything. In 08-09, we had a budget of $41.8 million. At the low end, we had a $27 million budget that was augmented by $8 million with the SAFER grant, and where we are today is a $37 million budget. So as you can see, we went from a high of 41 down to 38, and our current budget is without any augmentations whatsoever. Our current budget breakdown, I'm gonna have to get my glasses. They're on the side. People ask, how is our budget broken down? 58% of our budget goes to salaries, 35% goes to benefits, 6% goes to services and supplies, and 1% into capital. Quickly, our staffing. I'll just jump from 2008. We were combined with the Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District. We had 388 full-time firefighters. As an organization, 287 of those were specifically Reno Fire Department employees. Today, we have 239. So, this graph just kind of demonstrates the staffing level drop that we've had and where we currently are. Quickly, our community engagement, we aggressively seek opportunities pursuant to council direction to engage in our community. And we participate in senior events, special events, river festivals, hot August nights, honor guard requests, community events. Very aggressive in our school outreach program. We visit schools, we read to kids. We have several mentoring programs going on. We offer ride-along station tours. We welcome opportunities to speak at community forums, HOAs, local businesses, et cetera, and we participate in a multitude of drills. So what does our future hold? Well, again, we're going to continue to aggressively engage our community. We're going to seek grants for equipment, training, and stations. We're going to continue to support our special teams, and we are going to continue to become and polish our high-profile customer service image. We seek those opportunities to engage in our community with the overall arching goal of being innovative, accountable, and effective. And on behalf of the men and women of the Reno Fire Department, I took a little too much time, but thank you very much for your time. I look forward to answering questions.
Thank you, Chief Hernandez. We all know REMSA, but most of us would be a little bit hard-pressed to tell you what the acronym stands for. REMSA is the Regional Emergency Medical Services Authority. This evening, we have President and CEO Jim Goebbels here to explain it. Jim is a registered nurse. He has 36 years of healthcare experience in our community. REMSA provides advanced life support ground ambulance services, medical helicopter services to our region. Other services include the SWAT Tactical Emergency Medical Support Program and Special Events Medical Service. REMSA provides educational services and classes, the Point of Impact Child Car Safety Seat Program, the First Watch Biosurveillance Notification System, and it performs emergency medical dispatch for the community. REMSA is also the designated training center for the American Heart Association and the lead agency for Safe Kids, Washoe County. Jim, tell us how it works.
Good evening, and Brent already introduced me, so we won't waste any time on that. What I'd like to do is kind of update you today on all the REMSA services that we do for our community, and especially for our citizens in the city of Reno. We have 42 ground ambulance. When I started REMSA in 1995, we had 15 ambulances. So you can see as the community grows, the needs grow, REMSA also grows with those needs. We have 4 medical helicopters. One is based here at Renown Regional Medical Center. One is based in Truckee, California. One in Minden-Gardnerville. And shortly we'll have a 4th helicopter based out in Fallon, Nevada. So again, most of our helicopters, we can cover about a 150-mile radius. With our helicopter service, about 50% of the service we deliver is to our rural hospitals. So we transport patients into our tertiary area here then for treatment in our medical centers. And the other 50% then, and we might have lost a mic, the other 50% then is scene work. So again, we can be called out to go through. And Deanna, I don't know if you want to try that. Can you guys still hear me? Okay, fine. So how busy are we? Well, our volume last year is we had 67,000 plus calls for service. Our ground ambulance transported 40,000 patients plus, and CareFlight transported 1,500 patients in for our community and region. Outreach. I will not go through all of these, I promise you, but I would like to highlight a few of the outreach programs that we work with. One is our car seat program. This program was started back in 1996 by some of our field paramedics who were so tired of going to the scene and seeing kids hurt needlessly from car accidents because they weren't restrained appropriately in the car. So we actually had a DOT program that we went through, and in today we've trained over 50 volunteers that help us, and once a month we go out into the community and do car seat inspections. With that, when you come to get inspected, not only do we do the inspection, make sure the seats are installed appropriately, but then we teach the parents how to do it. So again, they can do it for themselves as they go through. If for some reason a family doesn't have the appropriate seat that they need, then we'll provide a seat for them with that. One of the other programs that we do is Safe Kids Washoe County. Again, Safe Kids is a worldwide organization that focuses on injury prevention for kids 14 and under. So again, it's a coalition of coalitions. The health department's involved with it, the school districts are involved with it, the Kiwanis and Rotary are all involved with injury prevention for our kids in the community. We provide a coordinator that works with that. You've heard a little bit about our tactical team. So we do have a tactical team that trains with all 3 of our SWAT teams here in the region. And again, they will go out for all the training drills, and they will go also out for any active cases that are involved. Those trained paramedics are there, number 1, to take care of law enforcement should they get hurt on one of these scenes. Number 2 then is to deal with a victim if a victim's involved with that. We teach a babysitting program. Can you believe that? We do. The reason why we do that is, again, one of our staff members came to us and said, it's not in the community. Can we do that? So we train once a month, almost once a month, a 8-hour babysitting course. So those babysitters learn how to activate 911. They learn how to do some first aid in the house. They learn how to play with the kids. We even make them change diapers. So again, they've got practice on dolls before they have to do it for real. And one of the other big things that we do for the community is our special events. So as we bring tourists into our community here in Reno, again, things that are very large, where we have a large group of gatherings, we make sure that we have paramedics and EMTs that are within those crowds that can deal with situations. We did over 650 special events last year. So again, our staff is very active and involved with that. Education. We have a huge education department. We train over 1,600 students a month. That's a month. Where do they come from? They come from the community. We teach CPR. We teach how to use an automatic external defibrillator. We teach first aid. Then we have our professional programs. In those professional programs, we teach doctors. We teach nurses. We teach paramedics. We teach firefighters. And we even teach law enforcement on some of the training programs that we have. So very, very proud of our education department. First Watch. Something to bring up about. We've had First Watch, which is a biosurveillance program, in our service for the last 10 years. What this does is, it is a software program that works with our CAD, so that computer-aided dispatch, so it tracks all of our incoming calls, and it's looking for 4 or 5 different triggers. One of the triggers it looks for is, are we having a run of respiratory calls, and are those respiratory calls in a certain part of town? Do we have a run of people going unconscious, and is it in a certain area of town? Could be a biological problem going on there. So this software program tracks that. This time of year, we turn it on for another trigger. What would that be? Flu symptoms. So again, those are being monitored, and it's all electronic. My staff doesn't have to do anything. This computer program does it. Could it monitor Ebola breakout? Absolutely. Where do these monitors or triggers go? They go to the public health department. So the public health department has staff monitoring those triggers. If they see these triggers rise, they're going to call physicians' offices. They're going to call the hospitals. They're going to see, is there a problem going on in our community, so that we can react to that. Do you know the state has a mobile hospital? They do. Do you know that REMSA houses that mobile hospital? And if we had to activate that mobile hospital, our staff is trained to go ahead and deploy that. That hospital has 4 different pods. It could house up to 200 patients at a time. Never deployed it here, have we? Almost did in Las Vegas last year. They actually had a flu outbreak. There was phone calls going back and forth. So we almost had to get it there and deploy it. Luckily, they were able to take care of it with the services they had. Dispatch. What is medical dispatch? Medical dispatch is, as Daniel explained, we have 2 911 centers here, one in Reno and one in Sparks. So when that call comes in, it's fire, police, or medical. If it's medical, it's transferred over to REMSA. That's where we have certified emergency medical dispatchers, their paramedics and their EMTs, that will ask you some key questions. And depending on how you ask those key questions, then you will be ranked according national, again, protocol that we use, as a life-threatening call, a non-life-threatening call, or an urgent call. So what kind of calls are those? The other key that these emergency medical dispatchers do, they'll stay on the phone with you. They'll give you instructions over the phone on how to deal with that medical illness or that medical injury till one of us arrives, either fire first response or REMSA. So again, you're connected immediately from the time you're with REMSA dispatch with a paramedic or EMT until someone physically gets there to help you with your problem. Priorities. So life-threatening calls. What are life-threatening calls? If you have an airway, a breathing, or a circulation problem, That's a life-threatening call. So what's that look like? You can have an allergic reaction where your airway is closing down. You can have severe respiratory distress, cardiac arrest. That has something to do with circulation. Chest pain, choking, active seizures, strokes. All of these responses, we need the cavalry. What's the cavalry? Fire and REMSA. That's the cavalry. Law enforcement sometimes there too, and they assist us with those. Non-life-threatening calls, what are those like? Abdominal pain, a diabetic, but he's awake, alert, and conscious. Someone with a heart rate that's too slow or too fast. Somebody that may have an overdose, but still awake, alert, breathing fine. Those types of things are priority 2 calls. Priority 3 calls. These calls need medical attention, but they don't need it immediately, and we don't need the cavalry. So these are patients, and sometimes it can be as minor. Excuse me, guys, a slide slid over on me. Some of these things can be somebody twisted and sprained their ankle. Do they need help? Yeah. But do they need it over a life-threatening call? No. We're still going to respond, but we're going to take care of all the life-threatening calls first, the non-life-threatening, and then still be able to deal with that sprained ankle or someone who's got a tooth pain. But that does not require our 2-tiered system, as Chief talked about. This system was designed way back in '86 to be a 2-tiered system. Life-threatening calls, we all go. A non-life-threatening calls, then we'll just use the ambulance service to respond to those. And I apologize for that slide. It really slid over. So how do we deploy our ambulances? Get that question all the time. We are very much of a fluid deployment. What that means is we're much more like the police department. We move with people. You'll see more ambulances along I-80 and 395 in the morning, and now the new 580. Because where are people moving? They're moving to those freeways. In the evening, you'll see us deploy more back out into the community. How do we do this? How do we know how many ambulances we need at any given time? Again, we have software programs that study all of our calls by hour a day a week. So we have predictability of where those calls are going to happen and when, and we actually look and change our staffing model and our posting model every 4 months to meet those needs. This is just a snapshot of one day of how we would staff. And you can see, I don't know if you can see the top line up there is what our staffing was for that day. The bottom line, boy, Chief, it really went fast for me. The bottom line is those calls by hour of that day and those calls that we responded to. So the peak of that day was calls at 4 p.m., which was 11 calls. Now, when is our busiest time? We constantly fluctuate with those busiest times, but we can tell you between 4 p.m. and 10 p.m. is when we're going to have the majority of staff on the street. That's when we'll get our majority of calls for ambulance services. This is another software program that we use called Marvelous. And this board here actually gives you, again, a snapshot in time of the ambulances that were out there and the ambulances that were available for calls. You can see some green circles there. That's from my computer. That's telling me through predictability that we're going to get a call in those areas within the next 30 minutes or for the next 45 minutes. So we'll make sure that we have ambulances within those areas to meet a call. If one ambulance takes a call, we'll reposition the other ambulances to the next most likely. With that, do you ever see us at Target? We're at Target. Do we shop at Target? No. That's called street corner posting. And again, that's somewhere within these neighborhoods that we can get into the arterials quickly or we can get into the neighborhoods quickly. So that's why you see us at Target. Now, the staff's going to kill me, but I'm going to tell you this statement too. If you see us at Starbucks, chances are we're in getting a cup of coffee at Starbucks, okay? And we can use that for a post too. One other thing I'd like to state on this slide here is we do monitor our average response times for the city of Reno. Our average response time for those priority 1 life-threatening calls for the city of Reno for last month, for the month of September, our average time was 5 minutes and 23 seconds. For those priority 2 calls, the non-life-threatening calls, it was 5 minutes and 54 seconds to go through. I'm going to really move through so Brent can have the podium back. But just to remind you, REMSA is a not-for-profit organization. The only funding source we have is when we transport a patient, then we're able to bill for that transport. But remember, I told you we get 67,000 calls for service. But I told you we only transported 40,000 calls. What happened to that other third call? We still respond. We'll take care of the situation. We'll help the patient. But the patient can refuse a transport. And they oftenly do. A third of the time we'll help them with the situation, but they choose to go a private vehicle or choose not to have any medical care at all. Sometimes people will just refuse. I didn't call you, because anybody can call 911. My neighbor called. I don't need you, but thanks for coming anyway. So again, we do this and we receive no tax subsidy on our dollars. Like any medical care organization, just because we send out a bill doesn't mean people pay the bill. So out of those 40,000 patients, maybe 20,000 have the ability to pay something. And out of those 20,000 people that actually are able to pay, we collect about 36% of what we actually bill. It's the same for the hospitals. And the hospitals say, don't whine, Goobles. Our collection rate is much lower than that. So again, we have to manage our system, manage our resources with the amount of money that we can take in and support our system. 911, it's being overused. There is not enough firefighters. There is not enough police. There is not enough ambulance personnel to respond to every 911 call. How did that happen? Wow, for the last 30 years, what have we told all of you to do? You got a problem? Call 911. Wow, it's working. It's working. So, is there an alternative to do that? Yeah, there is. And we need to work on alternatives for our community. So what can we do? Well, we need to achieve a balance. We don't want to under triage or over triage, but we need to achieve a balance with all of these calls. Let's give people an option. So we have an option right now. It's called the Nurse Health Line. The Nurse Health Line has nurses there, and what it's called is the Emergency Nurse Call System. So if you have a life-threatening emergency, please call 911. That's what the fire department's there for. That's what REMS is there for. But if you don't have a life-threatening emergency, but you got questions, you don't know what to do, you just cut your finger. What do I do? I was slicing those tomatoes. I knew it was getting close. I cut my finger. What do? We're giving you an alternative. Call the nurse. Here's the Nurse Health Line, 858-1000. How do we have this Nurse Health Line? It's being supported by a federal grant right now. How many calls do we get a month on the Nurse Health Line? 2,000 calls a month. We've only been up and running for 11 months. What does that tell us? The community wants to call somebody, talk to them, and find out what to do with their problem. That nurse can advise them on home care. That nurse can advise them, no, you need to go to the urgent care clinic tomorrow. That nurse can advise them, no, you need to call your doctor. Or that nurse can say, no, you need an ambulance and a fire response, and we're sending one right now. So that's how that system works. We got to do things differently. This is one of the ways to do it, and it's free to everyone in the community to use. So what other innovation solutions are we using? Right now, by reimbursement, REMSA, in order to send that bill, has to take you to a licensed emergency department. You have a sprained ankle. I want to offer you an option. You can go to an emergency department, I'll take you there. Or would you like to go to the urgent care clinic around the street? They can render the same level of care. What would you like to do? Now, is it more cost effective for you to go to the urgent care? Yeah, less out-of-pocket cost, less overall cost. Would you like to do that? Okay. Now, if you're intoxicated, but your vital signs are stable, should I take you to the emergency department? What are they going to do? Nothing that the community triage center can't help you with, which is help detoxicate your situation. So they're the detox center for our community. We'll take you straight to the detox center. If you have a mental health problem, your vital signs are stable, why would I take you to the emergency room? I'm not anymore. I'm doing more innovation. I'm taking you straight to a mental health facility that can help you without wasting our resources of that emergency department, because they don't have ultimate capacity either. So we need to get the right patients to the right place. That's what we're doing with our grants. Much more than just an ambulance service. We're really integrated in improving healthcare in our community. It takes all of us as a community to improve our health. You have to do it as an individual. Then we need to know as a community have the right resources out there to meet the right needs of our community to really improve our health in the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you again to our presenters. That's the end of the standing portion of this evening's program. We're going to let everybody sit for the rest of this, and we're going to deal now with the questions that you have submitted. And the first one I'm going to direct to Daniel Johnson and also perhaps Jim Goebbels. What items do you need from a loved one who is being treated? And I'm assuming from this, I have called with an emergency. I have someone who's very sick and going to the hospital. What do you need from me?
The first thing, can you guys hear me on the mic here?
Yeah, when you call 911 and the dispatcher answers, they have a set of questions that they're going to ask you. It's going to be the nature of the emergency. It's going to be the location. It's going to be who you are as a caller, so they know. And we also get the feed from the phone system for the location, and so we'll verify those things. And then it kind of depends on that nature of the emergency. If it's medical, we end up sending it to REMSA, and they go through their EMD process, which has set questions, which then change based off the responses to the previous questions. The biggest thing to remember when you call 911 is try to remain calm. Obviously, you're calling in an emergency situation, and it's difficult, but if you can remain calm and listen to what that dispatcher is asking you and then answer those questions, that's how you can get that response to you faster.
Jim, can I jump in just a second?
Sure, go ahead, Mike.
What I mentioned earlier that the Reno Fire Department engages in the senior community. One of the things that we try to educate our seniors and just family members as a whole is that little things like when you know you have an elderly parent that you're taking care of, it's critically important that you have their insurance information, who their doctor is, who their specialists that they're seeing, and even something as simple as getting a large Ziploc baggie and placing all of those meds in that baggie so that when you call 911 and you begin that request for emergency medical services and the REMSA, our people show up and REMSA people show up, they have that critical piece of information with respect to, what your medical conditions are, what you're being treated for, and most importantly, what meds you're on. So that's the educational piece that the fire department does. And Jim, I'll turn it over to you for the second half.
And again, part of that pre-arrival instructions that we'll do is after we go through the complaint and stabilize what's going on, and it could be as acute as my husband's in cardiac arrest, not breathing, we will coach you on how to do CPR. Or it could be as basic, okay, the ambulance is on the way, be sure and unlock your front door, get your medications out for us. And do you have any pets? Oh, you do. That's wonderful. But could you put the pets in the bedroom and close the door so we can get right to you when we get unseen?
Here's one for you, Chief Hernandez. We live in a mobile home. How much debris must be removed near the power box?
Well, there's no specific rule or regulation with respect to debris along electrical panels. I'm assuming they were talking about electrical services. However, we strongly encourage all of our citizens to keep a certain space, I think it's 30 feet around their home with respect to shrubs. We strongly encourage good housekeeping. A lot of people, we drive neighborhoods and we see homes that stack their firewood along the side of their homes, underneath a window, adjacent to their wooden porch. So we encourage people to keep their home, to the best housekeeping standard that we can. But with respect to electrical services, there really isn't a rule or a regulation that we can enforce. We can only recommend that we keep that area clear.
Thank you, Chief. Chief Robinson, this is directed to you, but we may want to have someone from police or REMSA chime in also. For winter, what is the number one item that civilians lack that you could stress upon us to have in or carry in our car? What are we not carrying with us that we should?
Keys. I guess I'm looking at that the opposite way, but we tend to see vehicle thefts rise in the winter because people leave their keys in the car with engine running. So take those keys with you and don't leave them in the car. The other thing we promote, especially during the holiday season, is don't leave valuables out. Criminals tend to be opportunists. If they walk by and they see a package or a purse or something in a vehicle, greater likelihood that they'll target your vehicle than someone who has nothing in there. So I probably approached it from a different angle, but I hope I addressed that for you.
Let me follow up to Tom's comments. How many of you in here have a smartphone with you right now? And almost everybody does. I think it's important, not just in a vehicle, but use that phone effectively. You carry it in your vehicle. The question was directed that way. But often we'll get sent to a call for service. It could be a robbery, suspicious subject, another crime in progress, and a person actually sits there in their vehicle or in their residence and watches this person perpetrate this crime and then gives us basically a verbal description. If you can, take a picture of that person, take a picture of that car, and we'll make sure we get that information, and you've basically got some very, very good identifiable information about that individual or a vehicle.
There's some good suggestions for fighting crime. How about survival tips?
Well, more on the safety side, and I think anytime you want to travel out of our area, even out of the metropolitan area, it's really important, especially in the wintertime, you can have a breakdown. So make sure that you have a couple bottles of water in your car to keep hydrated, some blankets. One of the other injuries that we see frequently when we get snow, and I do hope we will get snow this year, is people putting chains on. Be sure and get off the side of the road. If you have a flare or a triangle, use that so people know that you're out there trying to work on your car so we don't have oncoming traffic run into you and harm you. And always, a little shovel on your own for when we do get snow, you can pull it out and help yourself get unstuck. So have those basic supplies in the back of the car.
Jim? Back to Chief Robinson. How many, by the way, this comes from Twitter. This was a Twitter question for us this evening. How many officers are on the streets every day?
By the way, you can follow us on Twitter. I was supposed to say that for our public information officer. A typical shift will have a lieutenant, 3 supervisors, and probably 18 to 25 police officers out in the field, just dedicated to patrol. And then we'll have another 10 to 15 support units out in the field, which include the bike team, which you see here tonight, that patrol the downtown area, or our regional gang unit, or our traffic division.
Jim, here's one for REMSA. Why doesn't REMSA pay a franchise fee to local government like other public utility providers do?
REMSA does not pay a franchise fee, nor do we receive any subsidy for the services that we do. REMSA is supporting part of the health department. They have some staff that oversee our performance, so we do pay for part of that staff. The difference between REMSA and a utility company is the fact that when you call REMSA, we're going to come. We're going to transport you whether you have the ability to pay or not. Our financials, when we put them out last year, we gave $37 million in uncompensated care. So again, we are mandated to render care whether you have the ability to pay or not. And that's how much care that we render back into the community. Unlike a utility, if you don't pay your bill, what happens? Your power gets shut off. If you don't pay for waste management, what happens? Your trash doesn't get picked up. We will continue to service you whether you have the ability to pay or not. Some patients, we get calls 3 times a day. We will service that patient 3 times a day.
What is the Reno Fire Department involvement, if any, in the REMSA Community Paramedic Program, a taxpayer-funded federal grant program?
We are not involved in that program.
Back to the police department. What existing codes would you like to see enforced more via increased funding or reallocation of existing funds?
I'll take that, Brent. I think that our efforts and the direction from council recently is for strategic views for the Reno Police Department is to deal more effectively with graffiti. and where we had a committee we established. Deputy Chief Mac Vinzon, who is just seated behind us to my left, was on that committee with a council person and several people in the community. And one of the things we'd like to strengthen is some ordinances and some legislation at the state level to deal with offenders and deal with funding to support abatement and other efforts to prevent graffiti in our community.
Chief? Jim, back to you. How many ambulances, this is from Twitter again, how many ambulances are on the street right now?
I had to check my watch. Right now, we probably have about 17 ambulances out in the street, but we're going to constantly fluctuate our ambulances during the day, by hour a day, day a week. So again, in the morning, we don't all start at 4 o'clock in the morning. We have a crew that comes on at 4, 4:30, 5, 5:30, 6:30, 7, a couple more crews that come on at 9. They all work 12-hour shifts. So again, they stagger off on the other end. So the majority of ambulances that we're going to have out is always between 4 p.m. and 10 p.m., but we will flex that as we need it due to call volume.
Sticking with you for this next question, Jim, is it true that REMSA collects revenue for interventions performed by fire department personnel? For example, if fire's on the scene first and provides EMS such as oxygen therapy, IV, or other interventions prior to the arrival of REMSA, does REMSA charge the patient for these services? And if so, why do they not pay the city or county back for this?
Now, Brent, you gave me 2 questions in a row.
I know
That
I
was
did.
not the format. REMSA has only 2 charges. It's been that way. That's the only way the federal government, the state government reimburses us. We have one base rate. That base rate is anytime that ambulance responds and transports. The other and the only other fee that we can charge is a mileage fee. So if you're 2 miles away, we get to charge you for 2 miles for the transport. If you're 6 miles away, you get to charge for 6 miles. So the reimbursement by procedure or reimbursement by techniques you use, that went out the window 15 years ago. So there's only two things that we can charge.
Guess who this question is for? I'm sorry, we're actually almost at the end of our carded questions here. So we come back to REMSA. Why hasn't REMSA adopted the same radio program like everyone else in the valley? This prevents fire from gathering more intel.
We have 2 radio systems in our valley. We have an 800 megahertz system. Law enforcement, fire are all on the 800 system. REMSA is also on the 800 system, but in a limited capacity. Every one of my supervisor vehicles and everyone on my TEMS team has an 800 radio where they can talk directly back and forth. The other system we have is called UHF, and that is the frequency that all EMS systems nationally, it's the national frequency, it's 400 frequency that we use for REMSA. We have just upgraded that to a microwave system. Now, we can patch in between the UHF and the 800 system. And we're getting more aggressive with that right now with our fire departments so that we can talk to our dispatch can talk to their unit in the scene, or we can patch unit to unit communication. So as Engine 8 is out there approaching the scene and finds out it's a hazmat situation, they can talk to my unit 318 who is not there yet and coming up on scene. The value of this is if one system goes down, we have another system in this community that the other users can jump on the UHF or that we can convert to 800. And a mass casualty in our community, we have designated 800 channels. We will all get on those 800 channels and be under a unified command.
All right, our final question from the cards this evening is for all presenters. And in fact, this also may have been emailed in. I'm not sure that I'm telling the truth about the cards. But for all our presenters, do you look for any medical alert necklaces or bracelets? Do you see an increase of people wearing them?
I can speak for the Reno Fire Department. Yes, we do. We look for necklaces, wristbands, and there are also some programs on cellular phones that have critical information. The necklaces and the wristbands have been around since the 60s, so that's probably one of the first things we look at, especially when a patient is unconscious.
And Chief, I echo the same thing. So again, we back ourselves up doing that. So even as we approach the patient, somebody from one of our groups is taking care of those three identifications too at the same time.
Thank you. Is that a concern at all for police?
Yeah, there's a couple different areas or times we would look for that kind of information, similar to what Fire and Rams had talked about. If we tend to respond to emergency medical calls if we're close, and in those situations we would check. We would also train our officers to check for a medical alert bracelet when they're conducting DUI investigations, because some symptoms that appear to be DUI related end up being a medical issue. So we check for medical alert bracelet in those areas as well. And like what Jim said earlier, we also want to provide information to Fire and REMS when they're responding to a medical emergency if we get there first.
Thank you. Now we're going to open up the floor for the next 15 minutes to the audience for any questions that have not already been answered by our panel. We ask for one question per person, that you don't repeat a question that's already asked, and that you ask your question in less than a minute, please. Please come on up to the microphone if you would like to ask.
Yes, I like. Is this on?
Yes.
Yes, Mark, you're good.
Okay. I'd like to know what you're doing to better enforce DUIs. I believe the community should put pressure on drunk driving, but I want to know what the police are doing to better enforce it nowadays.
Mark, thank you very much. I'll take that. The Reno Police Department works very closely with the sheriff, the Highway Patrol, and the Sparks Police Department, a combined effort to conduct more DUI operations in the entire geography, so not just in our city. And we're as we've indicated with our calls for service, we have a big geography, we have a big responsibility, so we conduct a lot of those operations with their support in the city.
I believe the community should put pressure on people not to drink and drive.
Thank you, Mark.
Next question. All right.
So a friend of mine was assaulted yesterday downtown here, and he said he didn't report the crime because the last time he reported it, he got his business and his company in so much legal hassle. Of course, they won it, but it cost them a lot of money. How can citizens be more protected against opportunist criminals that they know the system, they know they can take advantage of people, and people won't press charges because of that reason?
May I ask for a little more specific, in what way what kept your friend from reporting?
He works right downtown here, and he was assaulted 3 years ago, establishment where he works, because he's a bouncer, more or less. He was trying to extricate a person from the business, and the person assaulted him, so they got in a fight. So the person, these criminals, I've been in law enforcement for 37 years, so these criminals know the system, and they know that if they put pressure, usually the business will drop the case, before it goes to trial, because it's going to cost them a lot of money. And the businesses are aware of that too, so they just people don't press charges. People don't call for emergency because they are just so worried that it's going to cost them so much money in litigation nowadays.
Thank you for that clarification.
Mr. Newton, I'll take that question. In that case, what I would recommend is that individual, and I think we talked about that case yesterday, sir, in the lobby, that individual give us as much information early on about that incident, if we need to get other statements and things that support, obviously, his version of that incident if he was a victim, all right? As you're going through the process, in this case, it was probably a misdemeanor battery. So you work directly with the city attorney here. We work very closely with the city attorney. Tracy's here tonight representing the city attorney's office on behalf of council and the forum. And you need to keep us updated. So for a victim of any crime, this is a misdemeanor we're talking about, we can work closely with the city attorney to make sure that case is prosecuted. But if we don't have that information, right, and the case isn't prosecuted well because we don't have that information, you end up in some litigation. The other thing I would recommend is that if you have concerns about your risk management, if you work for an organization, if it's downtown or anywhere in our community, and you have concerns about being a victim of a crime, because there is certain laws and things that support victims of crime, all right, federally and state laws, make sure the Reno Police Department knows that. Really, let any of us know that. If you get transported as a victim by RIMSA, if you're dealing with RFD initially, you may not want to report. Make sure RFD gets that information. They're going to shoot it right over to us. If you have concerns about risk management, we can't do that for you. We don't do risk management for victims, but we can have our victim services people work very closely.
Yeah, I was just going to add on about our victim services unit. A reluctant victim is actually a typical thing, and we have a unit of outreach specialists that are volunteers, that are highly trained, that work with victims to help them get connected to some of the resources available state and federally that the chief talked about. So if you have someone who's worried to come forward, have them give us a call. If they don't want to work directly with the police officer, we can connect them with our victim services unit.
Next question.
Reno substations are there, and how are they managed? Since the one on Neal is closed till November 3rd, is that run by full-time police officers or volunteers?
We currently have, I'm going to botch this. We have two substations. One is actually downtown here. We call it the City Center substation. And we also have the one down on Neal Road that you alluded to, the Neal Road substation. And they will also provide walk-in report services at our front desk at the main police station. We are having staffing issues at each of the three substations because many of the personnel that work there are retiring, and we're behind the curve trying to hire but they're getting out the door quicker than we can hire for them. We have been talking at the executive level about developing a plan to staff those over the next couple months. And for the South Substation, we'll have it opened on Mondays and Wednesdays, I believe. But you can check our Facebook page, you can check reno.gov, or you can call 334-2175, and we'll get you the information on when they're open. And if you can't make it to the substation, we have a variety of other ways that one can file a report, either by going to reno.gov or calling our non-emergency number and having our dispatch refer you to an appropriate method to report crime.
Next question.
Can we speak to the recent increase in the trend with pedestrian injuries and deaths?
So we've had a couple of pedestrian-related fatalities over the last couple weeks, actually. Typically, we have anywhere from 10 to 20 fatal accidents within this area, and usually a third of those are pedestrian-related fatalities. The unfortunate fact of those crashes is a lot of times, actually 50% of the time, the pedestrian has some culpability in their death, which is a very sad fact. But there's a lot of ways to mitigate that, using crosswalks, crossing the street at a controlled intersection. Many of these pedestrian fatality crashes occur at night, and the pedestrians are wearing dark clothing. So it really gets back to trying to get pedestrians back to the basics of looking both ways, crossing at a control point, those kind of things. Overall, Washoe County is doing a fairly good job in comparison to what goes on in Clark County in terms of pedestrian fatalities. I think we have, in the county overall, about 8 fatal crashes per 100,000 residents, and Clark County is at 20 per 100,000. One of the issues, I guess, that may be a contributing factor to the number of crashes in our region is the reduction that we took on our traffic division. We talked earlier about priorities of our organization, and our main priority was keeping our uniform police response strong, and our traffic division did take a hit. Our traffic division is responsible for traffic enforcement and accident investigation, and there's really three ways to impact traffic safety, and that's education, enforcement, and then working with the city engineers department to make roadway changes. So we're doing as many things as we can to promote traffic safety and pedestrian safety, but really it's important for everyone to kind of take the responsibility of their safety upon their own shoulders and use the roadways the way they're designed and stay on sidewalks and use crosswalks.
And as I ask for the next question, I'm also going to ask Deanna, if you are within hearing distance, would you come up and see me, please? Go ahead, sir.
The area downtown and wrapping around the universities is basically about 1% of the geographical area of the entire city of Reno, yet it accounts for a huge percentage of the crimes and calls for services that the Reno Police Department had. Just thinking outside the box, if you had unlimited resources at your disposal, what are like the top 2 or 3 things that you would want to do as the chief of police to help deal with that issue?
Well, Ken, you're helping us with that, actually. We applied for a grant 2 years ago, and the theme of that grant was Campus to Community. And basically, ladies and gentlemen, you're not familiar with the details of that, but the Reno Police Department wanted to get grant funding, about $1.2 million in grant funding to support programs and what we call surge operations, where we can surge law enforcement, public safety resources into a geography. And it doesn't mean you're necessarily going to get money to hire more cops. What you do is you get money, sir, to fund programs that we feel are going to work in that geography, and in this case, really the north side of downtown and the quarter south of the university. This gentleman is working with us to rewrite that grant right now, and we believe those programs, and I won't go into all that detail, but they're not all enforcement related. They're about changing the design, the conceptual design of infrastructure, of buildings, of creating awareness, building more partners and businesses. Every business that goes into that geography is involved in a partnership with the Reno Police Department and the Reno Fire Department, and we communicate with high frequency. So we try to get in front of, not necessarily crime prevention, but we try to get in front of problems when they start arising. And that is the approach that we want to create in that geography and really for the whole special assessment district downtown. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for helping us, Ken.
Next question. Yes, sir. Come on up.
Is there a number I can call or someplace I can go to find out an incident report? Normally, in some cities, they have a listing of who kicked whose cat, or we had a fire at such and such address at such time.
So this would not be an incident report specific to an incident that happened with you, but where you could keep an eye on what was going on in the
Right.
city.
Like at 9 o'clock Friday night a week ago, there was 4 fire trucks and 6 squad cars a block from my house. And I have no idea how I can find out if it was just somebody having a medical emergency, or if you were 4 fire trucks, that's a meth lab to me.
Sir, what's your name, if you don't mind?
Robin Jackson.
How you doing, Mr. Jackson? Actually, the Reno Fire Department and the Reno Police Department have a couple of systems. I'll explain those to the group. One is Alert ID, and basically you can get online, sign up for Alert ID, and it will send you reports over your phone of things that are going on in your neighborhood or any geography that you create within your profile. The other thing that we use at RPD that's a little bit more accurate and it's oriented around problems, the crime problems and crime, is crimereports.com. And that link is available on the Reno Police Department's website, and it's extensive, sir. So if you have something going on, you're getting ready to leave town, you want to put a house watch on your house, you can contact us. That's done. You can also look on your phone or online, wherever you may be, on what kind of problems and calls for service we've been going to in that geography. So Alert ID and crimereports.com.
If I could, Chief, I also wanted to get a little teaser that within the next 6 months, we'll be rolling out a My Reno PD app, which one of the services we'll provide will be an update to some of the calls that we responded to, but that won't be out for a while.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
Next question. Oh, come on. We've got 5 minutes left. If there are no other questions, I can conclude, but, oh, come on up.
That's why I was trying to apologize for that slide, because I spotted it too. So when we shrunk it on this screen, it changed it. Now, any potential stroke, okay, will be a priority 1, or it could be a priority 2. Most likely it'll be a priority 1. So it slid over.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Brent?
Yes, sir.
Before you continue, I wanted to add one thing to the traffic question that was asked earlier. I forgot to mention that we're doing a lot of outreach in the schools where we teach children about pedestrian safety. We have some grants where we can do pedestrian enforcement operations where we can target high accident locations and areas where we see an increase in pedestrian crashes. So there's a number of things that we're doing to try to promote pedestrian safety that I forgot to mention earlier, and I feel like a jerk for doing so.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you to all our presenters for taking time to address the questions posed in our pre-survey, listen to concerns tonight, and give us a better understanding of how our emergency services work. And I would like to thank all of you in the audience for your time, your attendance, your questions, and for caring about our community. Now, I'd like you to all take out your cell phones and take a quick survey about tonight's Public Safety Forum. Any phone with SMS text will work. To start the survey, please answer this question. Did you find tonight's Public Safety Forum informative? Please text yes or no to 775-624-7495. Now, that number is going to stay up there on the screen. Staff is available in the back room to help you, and your feedback is important to us. You can also view the results in real time at reno.gov/forum survey, and we will show it live here on the screen as well. Gives you that little feeling of fulfillment when you put in your feedback and you see the things change on the screen. We're going to leave that number on the screen, and we're going to give you about 5 minutes right now to give you time to fill in the survey. By the way, if you're not sure about which ward you live in, please take a look at the printed maps in the back of the room. And if you have a smartphone, there's a link within the survey that will direct you to the city's ward map at reno.gov/ward map.
Be more outcoming or more intake of post and cops for the post program and also for the seniors.
Thank you, ma'am. You mean specifically for SAVE, our senior volunteer program? Yes, we are recruiting. We always recruit for SAVE. When we get done tonight, you get with myself, Tom, or Mac, and we'll make sure you get the information, or if you have someone that's interested. When you're referring to post, are you referring to the Explorer post we have for youth, or? Well, yes, ma'am, you're right. We do use SAVE in the community on less restful events. And as Deputy Chief Robinson shared in his presentation, we have just built this RPD Wolfpack policing program to recruit youth from the university into the Reno Police Department, hopefully into public safety in the region in the near future, to help us with things that are less risky, where we're interacting with the community. Yes, ma'am. We do dozens of those a month, and we'll make sure you get that information tonight, or if anybody's interested, I think we do between, 30 and 40 a month, Tom?
I missed it.
Ride-alongs?
Oh, right.
Yeah. There's some seasons of the year, ma'am, with it's about 2 per shift across the month. But I mean, some months we'll do close to 100. But we'll get that information to you after the forum. Thank you, ma'am.
Wow, you guys give good statistics.
There you go.
Thank you all for participating in the survey, and I'm going to turn it back over to Reno Police Chief Steve Pitts to close out our forum.
Immediately to your right over there is Councilwoman Naoma Jardone. Would you please stand up? And Councilwoman Hillary Sheevy. Did Oscar leave? Yeah. I want to give them a hand. They're the ones that directed us to work on this. I'll tell you, Mike's been in the business a long time. I've done my entire career at the Reno Police Department, and this council has supported public safety with a passion, and that's because they want to make sure that you're served very well. And also with us tonight, many of them are in the back room. Some are immediately to your left. My right is the Office of Community Engagement and Communication. I want to give them a hand because they're the ones that had to put all this together. They did a great job with the technology. I think they did a wonderful job with the moderator, with Brent, and please give them a hand. In closing, I'll say it, he's much younger and a lot better looking than I am. But on behalf of Andrew Klinger, our city manager, we want to thank you once again for joining us this evening. We hope you leave here tonight with a better understanding of how the city of Reno provides service oriented around public safety in your community. If you still have questions or concerns that you don't feel were adequately addressed this evening, we encourage you to bring the conversation to our Think Reno portal at reno.gov/thinkreno. If you ask a question there, as Brent mentioned earlier, the staff from any of these agencies that were represented tonight will answer that within 30 days. In closing, the Reno Police Department is committed to making our biggest little city in the world a best place, or the best place, to live, work, and play. It takes all of us working together to be successful. We need you. Your thoughts and your input will help guide the city of Reno's public safety efforts in the future. This is an exciting opportunity for all of us. We appreciate your time tonight, and we thank you for being engaged with us and ask for your continued support in the future. Have a great evening, and we'll be here for any conversations in the lobby afterwards. Thank you very much.